Welcome back guys to a new Baki x Kengan video. Today's focus isn't about who is stronger, but what characters would fight if we ever got a Baki vs Kengan spin-off. So let's say all characters are around equal stats, so who will face each other? Hopefully this prevents a war in the comments, but regardless, I hope you enjoy. The most obvious matchup is Baki vs Ohma, the two main characters. It's pretty simple. It'll be a pretty interesting fight considering how versatile the, Ohma's Nico style is and how much, abilities and skills Baki can demonstrate during that fight. And we would also probably see Baki pulling out his demon back and Ohma pulling out his advance, which would be pretty hype to see. The next matchup I'm going to go for is Goku vs Hatsumi Sen, the battle of the Aikido masters. So you got old man Goku, who's notorious in, destroying people who are like 3 to 4 times heavier than him. So it'll be interesting for him to fight someone that isn't an insane amount of, weight over him. Hatsumi Sen is heavier, but it'll be pretty interesting to see a crazy and interesting Aikido battle, because we haven't seen too much of that in Baki. Like, we've seen other Aikido users, but Goku's just been that much of a monster compared to them. He just dominates. And the only time we've seen an Aikido versus Aikido match in Kengan is Chiba trying to pull it out against Hatsumi and getting rolled. The next matchup is Crazy vs Crazy, Jackhammer vs Kure Ryan. So Jack, the brother of, Baki, and Ryan, who's not the brother of Omar, but they seem to have gotten pretty close over the 2-year time skip. So yeah, Crazy vs Crazy, you got, Jack the biting monster and Ryan the killing devil. Will be a pretty crazy and wild fight. Jack is, a lot taller than Ryan, so that would be an interesting thing to see Ryan overcome, and it's just going to be a brute force brawling madness. The battle of the boxers and battle of the simps. We have Ali Jr. simping for Bucky's girlfriend and Gaolang simping for King Rama. So of course the boxing match is required. We're pretty hyped to see. It'd be better if we got them in like an actual, boxing arena and ring to see them fight, which would be a more interesting way for them to face one another. And I've also done a what if battle between the two on the channel already, if you want to check that out. Next we have Muscle vs Muscle. Before I continue, make sure you're subscribed. And if you're an absolute mad lad, check out the other stuff in the description, like the Discord and Patreon. Now back to the video. Biscuit Oliver vs Julius Reinhold. I've also done a what if battle for this fight on the channel as well. But yeah, who doesn't want to see this fight? The Almighty Muscles versus the Almighty Muscles. Two characters who have spent and dedicated their whole lives to developing their muscles. They're both the most monstrous looking characters in their respective series, and yeah, it'll be absolutely fun and greatness to see them fight. The next matchup I wasn't too sure about. It was Hatsumi versus someone. I was looking at the Kengan fighters from Kengan Ashura and I wasn't sure who I was going to put up against Hatsumi, so I decided to place Cosmo against him. There's no real reason for this. I could see Cosmo possibly facing like Baki or something, but as a whole I wanted to include Cosmo and I wanted to include Hatsumi. And those two didn't really have a specific matchup I wanted to include, so them two just, went together. I'm guessing the new young generation promising fighter of the future could possibly be their reason for fighting or something like that. Let me know your thoughts of that down in the comments. The next fight I decided to go for is Retsu vs Kanoito. This is similar to the previous one. I wanted to include Retsu and I wanted to include Kano, but I wasn't sure where or who would be fighting in this. But them two facing each other does kind of make a little bit of sense. It'll be interesting to see Retsu, who's 4,000 million years of Chinese Kempo versus Kanoito with his formless and various other martial arts skills he can use. Be a pretty interesting fight, and yeah, I think that's a pretty decent matchup. So the next two I'm also not 100% about. We have Dopa versus someone and Yudro versus someone. For both of them I placed Croakie. Dopa versus Croakie, I've done a what if battle on the channel as well if you want to check that out. But yeah, the two old karate masters facing one another. And if the stats were just left how they were currently, I think this would be one of the more, closer and interesting fights we could get in a Baki vs Kengan, fighting setting. And Yudra, I didn't really have anyone for him, and you just have to, put the strongest person in Kengan against him. So Yudro versus Croakie, I guess. But if I'm being honest, if we ever did get a spin-off for this, I don't think anyone would actually be fighting Yudro, just based on, the Baki's offer and how OP he's actually made Yudro in comparison to various other characters, and there wouldn't really be anyone in Kengan who would make total sense in fighting Yudro, if I'm being honest, due to how monstrous and abnormal he is in comparison to pretty much most people in Baki and pretty much everyone in Kengan. So I might just leave him out in today's video and place Croakie against Dopa Orochi. The next fight we'll have is the Battle of the Doctors, which is always required, always need doctors facing one another. We got a more sane doctor from Baki against the borderline insane doctor from Kengan. It'll be a pretty interesting fight, and yeah, as a whole is just required. The next fight, I have the battle of the, skilled people that aren't really fighters. We have Mutaba versus Mutaba, and this would be in like a street fighting anything goes setting. This would be, a battle of the warriors. Warrior Mutaba versus Mercenary Mutaba. This would be a pretty interesting fight. We'll see what Mutaba is truly capable of when he's fighting in the streets with anything, being allowed. And Mutaba who excels in fighting, as a warrior rather than a, martial art fighter. But yeah, this battle will be pretty hyped to see. Next, I decided to go for, pro wrestling. Mount Toba versus Sagabahashi, or the Marvelous Seki, will be required. So yeah, a very respectable battle of the pro wrestlers. There's also other pro wrestlers in Baki who could face Seki, or maybe the other, pro wrestlers in Kengan such as Jose and the other ones. And then for the final battles, I have Justice's Boy versus really any one of the prisoners. I could see him fighting any one of them, getting his justice on one of the prisoners, maybe Spec, maybe one of the other ones, doesn't really matter, just any of them. Apart from the prisoner known as Siskorsky, the Russian one, who I have facing against Rito, the battle of the superhuman, pinch strength. I've also done a what if battle for this on the channel as well. And I somehow forgot to mention it, but I also have Hanayama versus Waka for that matchup. So Hanayama, just a crazy raw power punching machine versus Waka, who is a karate practitioner, but I could very well see him just going in an absolute brawl with Hanayama. No one dodging, just going bang and bang back and forth until one falls, which would be pretty hype. But yep, that's pretty much all the what if battles. There could very well be some changes. For example, we could have, Julius versus Jackhammer, the battle of the steroid users. And also let me know down in the comments some other what if battles you want me to do for a Bucky versus, Kengan setting. And also some other matchups you would want to see if we ever got a crazy spin-off like this, which would be pretty hype. But yep, that's everything guys. Shout out to the people who support the channel via the Patreon, absolute mad lads. But yep, laters.